Welcome back to the Flight Deck, everyone. I am John Niehaus.
And I am Gita Brown.
And this is the Calm Cockpit. Now, usually we just kind of kick the tires and light the fires right away on this show. We usually jump straight into the technicalities or the guest interviews.
Right. Usually we are right into the weeds.
Exactly. But today, I kind of want to take a beat. I want to set the scene a little bit. Because where we are mentally, that space we occupy right between our ears, that dictates exactly how we perform physically when the pressure is actually on.
It really does.
And if you are a regular listener, you know the drill here. We talk about the cockpit not just as a workspace, not just as a collection of aluminum and wires and circuit breakers. We view it as an ecosystem.
It's very much a hybrid environment today, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, we aren't just in a simulator right now. We're in a mindset.
Onyx 1-2 Mike Oscar, runway 27, clear for takeoff.
I actually want you, the listener, to really close your eyes for a second. Well, unless you are driving.
Oh, well, we're actively flying a plane.
Right. Please do not close your eyes if you're on final approach right now.
Keep the eyes open for that.
Yes, eyes out the window. But if you're somewhere safe, picture this space with us. I want you to imagine the most advanced, just pristine flight deck you can possibly conjure up.
Like a brand new glass cockpit.
Exactly. We are talking the absolute latest avionics. The glass displays are glowing with your primary flight data. The thrust levers are just sitting there waiting for your input. And you look up and the overhead panel it's that beautiful constellation of switches and circuit breakers and knobs.
It's a very technical space.
Very technical. It's precise. It's actually kind of cold in a way. It smells like recirculated air and, ozone.
Yeah, that distinct airplane smell. But now I want you to soften that image just a bit. Try to overlay it with the feeling of a sanctuary.
Okay.
A place where the nervous system can actually settle down. Imagine that right next to your quick reference handbook, there is a copy of Gray's Anatomy.
That is quite the visual contrast.
Right. Imagine that the lighting isn't just those harsh fluorescent dome lights that give you a headache, but it's a warm, circadian-friendly amber glow.
I like that a lot better.
And imagine bookshelves lined with your flight manuals, yes, but also texts on neurobiology, respiratory mechanics, and maybe even a little bit of philosophy.
It's a space that feels incredibly grounded, quiet even, centered. It really is the intersection of the high-tech machine and the high-performance human.
Which is exactly where we operate.
And that intersection, that specific point of contact where the hand actually meets the throttle, that is the heart of what we are doing here today. Because we spend so much time talking about the machine, don't we?
Constantly. We obsess over it.
But the reality is the machine does not care if you are tired.
No, it doesn't.
The machine doesn't care if your blood sugar is crashing.
Right.
It doesn't care if you had a massive argument with your spouse right before you left the house for a 4-day trip.
But the safety of the flight, that depends entirely on those biological factors.
Entirely. And I say this as a flight instructor, as a professional pilot who has lived my entire adult life by checklists and standard operating procedures. We are obsessed with the aluminum tube.
We really are.
We check the hydraulic fluid levels religiously. We monitor oil pressure down to the exact PSI. We sit there staring at the EGT gauges during climb out just to make absolutely sure we aren't cooking the engines.
Because if a single amber light flickers on that annunciator panel,
we've a procedure to solve it immediately. We do not do the whole wait and see thing. We fix it. We ground the plane if we have to.
But the pilot, the human operator sitting in the left seat.
Right. We tend to run that particular system into the ground until it suffers a catastrophic failure.
It's so true.
We ignore the low-pressure warnings in our own bodies. We completely ignore the check engine light of our own fatigue. And that is exactly what we are here to dismantle today. We are going deep, very deep into what we call the human safety system.
I just love that framing because in my world, wearing my hat as a yoga educator and, a student pilot, I see this disconnect constantly. We tend to view mental training and stress reduction and physical well-being as nice-to-haves.
Like a bonus?
Exactly. The things you do if you happen to have a really long layover and you are feeling indulgent. Maybe you get a massage, or maybe you choose a salad instead of the airport burger.
If you're lucky enough to find a salad.
Right. But the core clear mission statement of the Calm Cockpit is that these are not luxuries. They are essential systems. They are the software that runs the hardware.
Because if the pilot fails, the system fails, period. It really does not matter how advanced the autopilot is. If the human who is supposed to be monitoring it is cognitively degraded, your safety margin is effectively zero.
Zero.
So today is a full system diagnostic. We aren't just skimming the surface here. We're going to talk about physical readiness. And I am actually going to challenge you on why your current workout routine might be completely wrong for the cockpit.
Oh, people are going to love that. And we are going to look at nutrition, but not through the lens of like diet culture or losing weight for vanity. Because let's be honest, nobody cares about your abs at 30,000 feet.
Truly no one.
We're looking at it as nutritional flight planning. How do we fuel for the mission to ensure maximum cognitive uptime?
Love that. And we are going to explore a concept that might sound a little, I don't know, abstract to some of the hard-nosed aviators out there, but I promise you it is extremely practical.
Mental white space.
Mental white space. How do we clear the cache in our brain so we can actually process the data coming at us during a high-stress approach?
It's basically a comprehensive check ride for your body and mind.
So strap in. Seatbelts tight, tray table stowed. Let's run the checklist.
Checklist initiated.
Perfect. I want to start this diagnostic with a concept that fundamentally shifted my entire perspective on my own career. And it came from one of our recent guests, Jeffrey Madison.
JJ. JJ is a legend.
For anyone who missed that deep dive, JJ is this incredible figure in aviation. He is an airline pilot who did something that is just statistically improbable. He returned to the cockpit at age 60 after a 14-year hiatus.
Which is just unheard of. I mean, think about the regulatory hurdles alone. The medical exams you have to pass, the simulator check.
It's grueling.
But the discipline required to actually get back to line proficiency after that long, the sheer amount of cognitive rust that builds up over a decade and a half, it's staggering to even think about.
It is. And when we asked him how, how did you manage that? His answer was not really about studying systems diagrams, though I'm sure he did plenty of that. His core argument was actually about identity.
Yes.
He said, we really need to stop thinking of ourselves just as operators or drivers. And we need to start thinking of flying as an athletic performance.
I can hear the skeptics already, John. They are saying, athletic, I'm sitting down, I'm strapped into a 5-point harness, I am drinking lukewarm coffee, and the autopilot is on. It's not exactly running a marathon.
No, it's not a marathon. But let's look at the actual physiology here. Let's break down the environmental stressors you are facing. First, you are dealing with altitude exposure. Even in a modern pressurized cabin, you are at a cabin altitude of maybe 6,000 to 8,000 feet.
Which is essentially mild chronic hypoxia.
Exactly. Your blood oxygen saturation is lower than it is at sea level. Your body is working overtime just to maintain its baseline function.
Which forces the heart to work harder to pump oxygen to the brain. People don't realize your resting heart rate is often significantly higher in cruise than it is when you're just sitting on your couch on the ground.
Right. Then you throw dehydration into the mix. The air in that cockpit is drier than the Sahara Desert. Literally. The humidity levels are almost non-existent.
And circadian disruption.
Oh, man, the circadian disruption. You're crossing 3 time zones. You are waking up at 3 in the morning. You are trying to sleep at noon. That just wreaks absolute havoc on your hormonal regulation. Your cortisol, your melatonin, they are all over the place.
And then on top of that immense physiological load, you have the sustained cognitive demand of decision-making.
It's an endurance sport. It really is. It's cognitive endurance combined with physiological stress.
If you look at Formula One drivers, they sit down, too.
That's a great comparison.
Right. But nobody questions that they are athletes because of the extreme G-forces and the split-second reaction times. Pilots are dealing with a slower burn, but a much longer duration. A Formula One race is what, 2 hours?
Yeah, around that.
A long-haul flight is 14 hours.
14 hours of sustained vigilance. JJ made this brilliant point that if you wouldn't fly an airplane with a leaking hydraulic seal, which is a physical body failure of the plane, why are you flying a human body that is massively dehydrated, sleep-deprived, and fueled entirely by processed sugar?
You're asking for trouble.
That is a system operating way outside of its limitations. You are essentially flying an unairworthy aircraft.
And this leads us directly into the physical training aspect. Because if we actually accept the premise that we are corporate athletes or tactical athletes, then we have to train like them.
We can't just train like casual gym goers.
Exactly. And this is where we get into the great debate.
Oh, yes. The cardio versus strength debate. This is where feelings get hurt. This is where I start getting the hate mail.
We had LaShaw Bacon on the show recently. She is a former Army helicopter pilot turned elite fitness trainer, and she really just blew the lid off the way most pilots exercise.
I felt personally attacked during that conversation, I will not lie. Because think about the typical pilot routine. We get to the layover hotel, we're exhausted, but we know we should work out.
You feel that guilt.
Right, so we put on our running shoes, we go down to the dismal hotel gym, and we jog on the treadmill for 30 minutes. Or we just sit on the elliptical, reading the news on our phone, barely even breaking a sweat.
It's the cardio trap.
The cardio trap.
And it makes perfect sense why pilots default to it. It has a very low barrier to entry. Running shoes pack easily in your carry-on.
Yep.
It clears your head after a really stressful flight. There's this nice meditative aspect to the rhythmic movement of running. And for decades, the medical establishment just hammered it into us that heart health equals steady-state cardio.
Run, run, run.
But Lashar argues that for the specific demands of aviation, especially as we age in this career, strength training is actually far superior.
Let's really unpack that, because that is a bold claim for a lot of folks.
Right.
Why strength over cardio? Why should I go pick up the heavy dumbbell instead of just hitting the quick start button on the treadmill?
It really comes down to two main buckets: operational readiness and metabolic health. Let's talk about the operational side first.
Yeah.
Pilots need to preserve explosive strength.
And this is the safety argument. In a normal routine flight, you are making very small, fine motor inputs. A flick of the wrist, 2 fingers on the yoke.
Very light touches.
But let's scenario plan for a second. Let's say you have a total hydraulic failure. Let's say you are in a 737 and the manual reversion kicks in.
Terrifying.
Right. The controls are no longer boosted by hydraulics.
Yeah.
You are physically wrestling that airplane to keep it level. The aerodynamic forces required to move those control surfaces manually are immense.
Or consider an evacuation scenario. You have to get out of your seat quickly. You might have to physically force open a jammed cockpit door.
Which happens.
It happens. You might have to lift a heavy overwing exit hatch that weighs 40, 50 pounds. You might have to drag an incapacitated colleague or a passenger out of a burning fuselage.
And in those critical moments, your ability to run a 10K at a moderate pace is completely irrelevant.
Totally useless.
What you need right then is the ability to exert maximum force very quickly. You need power. And steady-state cardio does not build power. Heavy strength training does. You need to be able to generate force from 0 to 100 in a split second.
Exactly. You are building the physical capacity for emergency output. And then there's the metabolic side of the equation. We all know the stereotype of the senior captain spread.
Oh man, the belly.
The belly. We sit for a living. It is an incredibly sedentary profession.
We are professional sitters who occasionally land planes. That's the job.
And muscle mass is the actual engine of your metabolism. Muscle tissue is metabolically expensive, meaning it burns more calories at rest than fat tissue does.
So if you spend your layover lifting weights, you are basically building an engine that keeps burning fuel, even when you are just sitting in the cruise phase for the next 5 hours.
That is the efficiency argument perfectly stated. Cardio burns calories while you do it, but once you step off the treadmill, the burn pretty much stops. But if you build muscle, that muscle is demanding energy while you sleep, while you fly, while you are sitting there filling out your logbook.
And let's not ignore the heart either.
Yeah.
There is this huge misconception that lifting weights doesn't work your cardiovascular system.
Oh, that drives me crazy.
Right. If you are lifting with proper intensity, if you are doing a heavy deadlift or a set of heavy squats, your heart rate absolutely spikes.
It skyrockets.
Your vascular system is working incredibly hard to pump blood to those massive working muscles. So you get the cardiac benefits plus the structural benefits of increased bone density and joint protection.
And that structural benefit is huge for us because pilots suffer from chronic back pain. Sitting in those ergonomically questionable seats for 30 years just destroys your lumbar spine.
Destroys it.
Strength training, specifically targeting the posterior chain, so your glutes, your hamstrings, your back, is really the only thing that keeps you upright and pain-free over a long career.
Absolutely. It is literal armor for your skeleton. Now, I know exactly what some listeners are thinking right now. They're thinking, I am tired. I've been flying for 4 days straight. I do not want to go to the gym and try to figure out complex Olympic lifts. I don't want to hurt my back throwing out a barbell.
It's intimidating.
But Lachey talked about the learning phase of fitness, which I found really encouraging for people who are just starting.
This is the neurological piece, and it is so fascinating. When you first start lifting weights, or even when you just change up your routine, The initial strength gains you see in those first 4 to 6 weeks aren't actually bigger muscles.
You aren't growing new tissue yet.
Exactly. The gains are almost entirely neurological adaptations.
It's muscle memory.
It is. It's your brain learning to fire the electrical signals to the muscle fibers more efficiently. It's called motor unit recruitment. And it is exactly like learning a new flight maneuver.
That is just a perfect analogy. Think back to when you first learned to land an airplane.
Oh, God.
You were over-controlling, you were super tense, your inputs on the yoke were jerky, you were probably sweating through your shirt.
Definitely sweating.
Your brain hadn't mapped the pathway yet. You intellectually knew what to do, but your hands just wouldn't do it smoothly. You were actively thinking about every single tiny movement.
And then, after 50 or 100 landings, the neural pathway is greased. The signal is clear and fast. Strength training is exactly the same process. You are teaching your nervous system to recruit muscle fibers.
So when you feel that initial soreness or that awkwardness in the gym, it's not failure. You aren't doing it wrong. It's just data acquisition. It's your brain mapping the airframe of your body.
And the key mantra that Lachey and JJ both really hammered home is consistency over intensity.
Which is absolutely crucial for the aviation lifestyle, because our schedule is pure chaos.
Under chaos.
You do not need to go into the hotel gym and crush yourself for 2 hours. In fact, if you do that, you might be way too sore or fatigued to fly safely the next day.
Which defeats the purpose.
You need a data-informed strategy. You just need to do something. Maybe it's a 20-minute kettlebell circuit. Maybe it's just some bodyweight squats and push-ups in your room. But you do it consistently.
It's all about keeping the system lubricated. We aren't training for the Olympics here. We are training for longevity. We want to be flying into our 60s without back pain, without metabolic disease, without all the aches and pains that end up grounding so many good pilots.
So the big takeaway there is, prioritize the weights. Do not fear the iron. It is your armor.
Yes.
Now, let's move from the airframe over to the fuel tanks. Let's talk about nutrition.
Or as we like to call it around here, nutritional flight planning.
I just love this analogy because every single pilot, from a student pilot white-knuckling a Cessna 150 to a senior captain in an A380, every pilot understands fuel load.
It's day one stuff.
You would never, ever take off without calculating your fuel. You know your burn rate. You know your reserves. You know your alternate airport requirements. You check the density of the fuel. You sunks the tanks to check for water contamination.
You check everything. But how many pilots start a 14-hour duty day with literally nothing but a cup of coffee and a vague hope that there might be a decent sandwich at the airport during a layover?
It's negligent, really, when you think about it. If we treated the airplane the way we treat our own stomachs, the FAA would revoke our certificates immediately. Oh, we'll just figure out the fuel when we get there. No, that is exactly how you end up in a cornfield.
So let's break down the flight plan. We talked a lot in previous deep dives about the caloric deficit. If you are actively trying to manage your weight, the laws of thermodynamics still apply. You do need a deficit.
Right. But, and this is a massive, but you have to manage that deficit exactly like you manage your fuel reserves. You cannot run the tanks dry in the middle of a critical phase of flight.
You cannot be hypoglycemic on a low visibility instrument approach in bad weather.
Meaning, do not crash diet on a heavy flying day. You need steady glucose for your brain to function properly. Your brain consumes about 20% of your daily energy just sitting there. And when you are actively scanning instruments, listening to a rapid-fire ATC calls, calculating descent profiles, that number goes way up.
So what is the optimal fuel mix? We've got our macros and our micros. Let's start with the big one, protein.
Protein is the fundamental building block, and the recommendation we discussed was actually pretty specific. It's roughly 0.7 to 1.2 grams of protein per pound of body weight for active adults.
Let's do the actual math on that because it always surprises people. If you are a 180-pound guy, you are looking at roughly 130 to 200 grams of protein a day.
That is a lot. That is a lot more than a bag of peanuts and a tiny plain meal.
It is a lot. It requires actual effort and planning to hit that number. But here's why it matters for pilots specifically. Satiety. Protein keeps you full.
Because when you are sitting in a cockpit for 4 hours straight, boredom, hunger inevitably sets in. You are scanning the instruments, everything is perfectly normal, the autopilot is flying, and your brain just says, hey, I need some stimulation, let's eat something.
And if you had a giant bagel for breakfast, that carbohydrate spike drops off a cliff after 2 hours.
And
you are starving and irritable by top of climb.
your blood sugar is just on a complete roller coaster.
Yeah.
And we all know that hangry pilots are not safe pilots.
But if you had eggs and Greek yogurt, or even just the solid protein shake, that protein breaks down very slowly in your system. It keeps your blood sugar incredibly stable, and stable blood sugar equals a stable mood, which equals stable decision-making.
It is all connected. You are literally feeding your judgment.
Exactly. And then there is the missing piece of the puzzle, fiber.
The highly unsexy hero of the diet.
It really is. Aviators have a notoriously difficult time with digestion.
The real problem.
We sit all day, we are chronically dehydrated, and we eat highly processed airport food. That is a perfect recipe for, well, let's just say gastrointestinal distress.
And there is literally nothing worse than being strapped into a seat at 35,000 feet with a stomach that is actively fighting you.
It is a massive distraction you do not want on final approach. Fiber regulates that entire system, but it is really hard to find in a terminal. You kind of have to hunt for it. You won't find it in the greasy burger or the slice of pizza.
You have to find the apples, the nuts, the oatmeal.
Or you have to pack it from home.
Which brings us to the hydration piece. We all know intuitively that dehydration leads to cognitive fog. But the real catch-22 in aviation is that pilots actively don't want to drink too much water because going to the lavatory is a massive hassle.
Especially if you are the only two up front.
Right. There is a whole security protocol to getting up. You have to call the flight attendant, lock the door, barricade the aisle, get back in. It's annoying.
I know it is, but we have to look at the data here. The clinical studies are so clear. Even mild dehydration, and we are talking just a 1 to 2% loss of body water, measurably impacts your ability to track moving objects and make complex calculations.
Which is flying.
It is effectively equivalent to a low level of alcohol intoxication in terms of your reaction time.
That is terrifying.
Yeah.
Just walking around thinking, oh, I'm not drunk, I'm just a little thirsty.
Yeah.
But the physiological result is basically the same.
It is.
So the answer is just drink the water, use the lavatory. The alternative is a slow, steady decline in your effective IQ as the flight goes on. Just deal with the logistics of the bathroom break. Your brain desperately needs the fluid.
Let's talk about the toolbox a bit. Supplements. We mentioned creatine recently, and I got so many messages about this.
Yes, I am so glad we cleared up the myths around this one. Because I always thought creatine was strictly for bodybuilders who just wanted to look puffy and retain water. I honestly thought it was steroid adjacent.
And that is such old school thinking. Creatine monohydrate is literally one of the most rigorously researched supplements in the world. Yes, it helps with muscular output in the gym, but for pilots, the really interesting research is on the brain.
The cognitive benefits.
Yes, it heavily supports cognitive function. It helps the brain with energy production, especially under conditions of sleep deprivation.
Which is basically the pilot's job description. Brain energy production under sleep deprivation.
Precisely. It is evidence-based, it is incredibly safe, and it is not just for meatheads. It is quite literally fuel for your neurons. It helps recycle ATP, which is the base energy currency of your cells, specifically in the brain during very complex tasks.
Wow. And what about collagen?
Collagen is fantastic for joint health. We put a lot of wear and tear on our joints in this job. Sitting rigidly, lugging heavy flight bags through terminals, the constant microvibration from the aircraft itself.
It takes a toll.
It does. Collagen can really help with the structural integrity of your tendons and ligaments. It's kind of like adding grease to the hinges.
Now, managing all of this, the protein, the water, the supplements, it can start to feel like a lot of work. Tracking macros sounds like just another logbook we have to fill out. And pilots hate paperwork.
We despise it, but that is exactly where technology comes in. We are living in the golden age of wearables right now. Garmin, Apple Watch, Oura Ring, WOP, Strap.
I am personally a Garmin guy, obviously, for the aviation features built in. But using these tools to track your sleep architecture, your stress levels via HRV, and your basic activity, it just reduces the friction. You don't have to guess how recovered you are. You have hard data.
And pilots love data. We are trained to trust our instruments. If you wake up and see that your HRV, your heart rate variability, is absolutely tanked, meaning your nervous system is highly stressed, you look at that and you know, okay, today's not the day for a heavy deadlift session.
Today is a yoga day.
Today is a light walk outside day.
And that leads to probably the most important principle of this entire nutrition and fitness section. Strategic flexibility.
Bend, do not break.
Aviation is chaos. Constant delays, reroutes,
Yeah.
maintenance issues. You plan perfectly to be at the hotel by 6 p.m. so you can eat and hit the gym, and you end up getting there at 1 a.m.
It happens all the time. And if that happens, you cannot force the routine. If you arrive at 1 in the morning, sleep is the absolute priority, period. You do not set an alarm to wake up early and hit the gym. That is a massive safety violation in my book.
You sleep. You just let the workout go.
You let the operational chaos dictate the rest day. You do not fight the schedule. You flow with it. If you try to force a heavy workout on 4 hours of terrible hotel sleep, you are just digging a physiological hole that you cannot climb out of.
Exactly. Your health routine has to actually survive the reality of your job. If it is too rigid, it will snap, and then you'll just quit altogether.
Right.
Okay, so we have fueled the body. We have strengthened the airframe. Now let's go upstairs. Let's talk about the avionics, the nervous system.
This is my absolute favorite territory. We really need to talk about recovery debt.
We defined this on the show a while back as the accumulation of task loading. It's not just one hard flight that does you in, it's the stack.
The stack is deadly.
It's the long duty day, plus the unexpected bad weather at the destination, plus the mechanical delay on the ground, plus the stressful commute home in traffic. It creates this constant grind mindset.
And the real danger is that we always think we are fine. We think, oh, I can push through this, I'm tough. But skipping your downtime actively degrades your executive function. It narrows your cognitive bandwidth.
Narrows bandwidth. I really feel that. It's exactly like when you were totally overloaded on the radio and you just stop hearing the passenger call button chime. Or you miss a critical readout on the primary display. You get tunnel vision. You just stop scanning.
And biologically, your stress hormones, your cortisol, your adrenaline, they stay elevated. You are stuck in a chronic state of fight or flight, even when you are sitting on your couch watching TV at home. Your body is literally still vibrating at the frequency of the flight.
The symptom we talked about before is feeling on edge. You know, you are home, you are perfectly safe, but you feel like you are about to miss a slot time. You keep checking your phone. You can't settle down. You can't just be...
That is your nervous system being stuck in the on and in position. And that erodes your safety margins long before you actually consciously feel tired.
So how do we flip the switch? How do we manually engage the human hydraulics to calm down? You introduced us to a practice called Yoga Nidra.
Yes. And I want to be very, very clear for all the pilots currently rolling their eyes at the word yoga. Yoga Nidra is not napping. And it is certainly not twisting yourself into a pretzel on a mat.
Though stretching does feel great after a flight.
It does, but that's not this. Napping is just sleep. Yoga Nidra is intentional neurological training. It is also referred to in clinical settings as non-sleep deep rest, or NSDR.
So what's the actual goal here? Why are we doing this instead of just taking a nap?
The goal is creating mental white space. Imagine your flight management system, your FMS, is completely full. The memory is maxed out. You literally cannot type in a new waypoint because the cache is crammed full of old, useless data.
You have to clear the cache.
Pilots need this desperately. We have to dump the data from the last flight to be mentally ready for the next one. We carry way too much ghost data from previous sectors.
We really do.
Yoga Nidra keeps you in a state of conscious relaxation. You hover right on that edge between waking and sleeping. It creates deep restoration in the brain, but because you don't fully fall into REM or deep sleep, you don't get that sleep inertia or grogginess when you get up.
And that is the absolute killer with naps. You nap for 40 minutes, you wake up and you don't know what year it is. You feel 10 times worse than before you lay down. You need 3 cups of coffee just to get back to your normal baseline.
Right, but with Nidra, you come out feeling alert and sharp. It improves your emotional regulation and, get this, it vastly improves motor skill retention.
So it actually helps you fly better. It consolidates all that muscle memory we talked about earlier in the gym and in the simulator.
Yes. Clinical studies show it significantly increases dopamine levels in the brain and drastically reduces mind wandering.
Now, we broke this down into a specific protocol we called Fly Steady, because we know perfectly well that line pilots do not have 90 minutes to go find a yoga class on a layover.
Right.
We need something highly tactical.
The Fly Steady protocol is very short and sweet. You can do it in a hotel room or even in a quiet crew rest area on the plane if you just have some noise-canceling headphones.
Step 1, environmental setup. Get into a dark room, maybe throw on an eye mask. Just get comfortable.
Step 2, the breathing pattern. We use the 4-2-6 protocol.
Walk us through that again, because this is the actual physiological hack.
It's simple physics for your body. You inhale through your nose for a count of 4. You hold the breath at the top for a count of 2. And then you exhale very slowly, maybe through pursed lips like you're blowing through a straw, for a count of 6.
Why those specific numbers? Why is the exhale longer?
The absolute magic is in the exhale.
Yeah.
The exhale is biologically linked to the parasympathetic nervous system, which is your body's brake pedal for stress. When you inhale, your heart rate actually slightly increases. Yes. And when you exhale, it slows down. This is a process called respiratory sinus arrhythmia. By actively making the exhale longer than the inhale, you are physically forcing your heart rate to slow down. You are hacking your own biology.
So inhale for 4, hold for 2, exhale for 6. You are basically manually overriding the body's stress response.
Exactly. And then step 3 is a systematic body scan. You just mentally check in with your toes, then your legs, your hips, slowly moving all the way up to your head, consciously releasing tension at each point.
It sounds incredibly simple, but I will tell you, the first time I tried it, my mind was racing out of control. I was lying there thinking about my bid schedule, doing the laundry, the email I forgot to send to the chief pilot. I honestly felt like I was failing at relaxing.
And that brings us to arguably the most important point of all this: consistency over outcome. You do not need to feel calm for the practice to work.
Oh, that's a huge relief.
It is training. Think about it. If you go to the gym and lift a heavy weight, your muscle grows, regardless of whether you enjoyed the rep or not. If you do the 4-2-6 breathing, your nervous system downregulates, even if your mind is actively screaming at you about your schedule. You are training the brake pedal.
So you just don't judge the session, you just do the rep.
Exactly. You are building the neural pathway to calm.
Now this leads us to the final, and perhaps the absolute deepest layer of our human safety system. We really have to talk about the psychological component, the very identity of the pilot.
We call this overcoming the performance self.
We had Avi Gordon on the show, an incredible mind-body coach, and he really helped us articulate something he called the pilot paradox.
It's such a profound internal conflict. Pilots possess this deep, almost spiritual love of flying. It's not just a 9-to-5 job, it's who you are, it is in your blood. But that immense love is completely inseparable from a very deep primal fear.
The fear of losing your medical certificate, the fear of a check ride failure, the fear of making one mistake that immediately ends your entire career. As pilots, we are always just one bad doctor's visit away from total unemployment at all times.
So you have this incredibly high-stakes environment where your entire identity and livelihood is on the line every 6 months during your recurrent training.
And the psychological result of that is severe perfectionism. We armor up. We do not show weakness.
Yeah.
We do not admit when we're struggling mentally or physically. We act completely invulnerable.
We create the performance self. It is a mask we wear. It's the version of you that is utterly flawless, that memorizes every single regulation, that never gets tired, that never ever has a bad day.
But the massive risk there, as Avi pointed out, is that wearing this mask leaves absolutely no room for just being a human being. It creates a rigid, fixed mindset. If I make a mistake, it's not just a procedural error, it's a character flaw. It means I am a bad pilot. It triggers immense shame.
And ironically, that exact mindset makes you significantly less safe in the air.
Right, because most aviation accidents and mistakes aren't caused by stick and rudder issues anymore. They aren't caused by a lack of basic flying skill. We know how to fly the plane. They are caused by a lack of presence.
If you are stuck in future worry, sitting there thinking, what if I fail this approach? What if I bust my minimums? Or you are stuck in past self-judgment thinking, man, I really botched that last radio call. I sound like an idiot. You are not in the present moment. You are not flying the airplane now.
You are time traveling in your head.
Yes. So the performance self actually distracts you from the actual performance.
We saw a really powerful example of this in our Monday briefing segment a while back regarding the Winter Olympics.
Yeah.
We talked about the figure skater, Gracie Gold.
That story really hit home for so many people. Here is someone at the absolute pinnacle of elite performance. Publicly, she is winning medals. She is the face of the sport. She's on the Wheaties box. But privately, she was struggling immensely with her mental health and the crushing pressure of it all. She was basically crumbling inside.
And the culture of elite skating, which is actually very much like the culture of aviation, completely normalized that suffering. The culture essentially said, well, this is just the price of gold. Suck it up and deal with it.
But the crucial lesson there is that these high-pressure cultures are finally slowly starting to shift. The IOC actually introduced calm zones at the venues and brought in neutral welfare officers. They are finally realizing that you cannot sustain excellence if you are burning the human fuel at both ends.
You cannot win if you are broken.
Exactly. We need a model of sustainable excellence in aviation. Rest and mental training have to be viewed as professional requirements. They are not soft indulgences. You are not weak for needing to recover from your job.
So what is the actionable tool here for us? How do we actually dismantle this performance self-mask and just focus on flying the plane safely?
I really love the phrase we discussed in that episode, try softer.
Now, be very careful with that one. Pilots hear the word soft and we immediately panic. We like things hard. Hard landings, hard rules, hard limits.
I know. But try softer does not mean try less. It doesn't mean being lazy or negligent in the cockpit. It means pairing your effort with intentional ease.
It's like the difference between gripping the yoke with pure white knuckles versus flying with just your fingertips.
Yes, that's exactly it. White knuckles is trying hard. You are actively fighting the plane. You are tense in your shoulders. Your reaction time is actually slower because your muscles are already rigid. Fingertip flying is trying softer. You still have absolute total control over the aircraft, but you have removed all the unnecessary physical tension. You are fluid. You are responsive.
I can visualize that perfectly in the seat. When you are tense, you are reactive. When you are soft, you are proactive. You can actually feel what the plane wants to do.
And to get to that state, you really need rituals. We talked about Cal Newport's concept of the shutdown ritual.
Oh, this is huge for the commute home from the airport.
Because pilots are absolutely terrible at leaving work at work, we will lay in bed staring at the ceiling, just replaying the entire flight. Did I make the right weather call on that diversion? Was that landing a little too long? We just loop?
Constantly. Cal Newport, who is a computer science professor at MIT, suggests creating a formal shutdown routine. For a pilot, that might mean you finish your paperwork, you purposely close the logbook, you put the headset in your flight bag, you zip the bag closed, and that physical zipper sound becomes the psychological trigger.
And you actually say a phrase out loud to yourself, like checklist complete or shutdown complete.
It feels incredibly silly to talk to yourself in the car, but it clearly signals to your brain, the mission is over. We are no longer responsible for the safety of this aircraft. We can finally switch over to recovery mode.
It stops the mental looping. It allows you to actually rest so you can be sharp and ready for the next flight. It is literally a permission slip to stop being a pilot for a few hours.
And that honestly really is the summary of everything we've unpacked today.
It really is. Let's bring it all into the final approach here.
Okay, gear down. The core mission of the Calm Cockpit is to recognize that these small, intentional choices absolutely matter. Prioritizing heavy strength training over junk miles on a treadmill.
Prioritizing protein and fiber over convenience food.
Prioritizing breathwork and mental white space over just mindlessly scrolling on your phone in the hotel room.
These choices literally prime your brain for safety. Taking care of yourself is not stepping back from excellence. It is the only way elite performers can actually sustain that excellence over a 30-year career.
We want you to be the captain who is just as sharp and capable at age 60 as you were at 25. Maybe even sharper, because you have the accumulated wisdom and the physical health to back it up.
That is the ultimate goal, sustainable, healthy flying.
Well, thank you so much for flying with us today. It has been an absolute pleasure unpacking the human safety system with all of you.
Fly safe, everyone.
And cut. Phew. Okay, did we get it?
I think so. Hold on. I think we actually managed to keep straight faces for that entire hour.
I was so close to losing it during the 426 breathing explanation. I was trying so hard to sound exactly like Gita. The magic is in the exhale. You sounded very zen, very grounded. I was genuinely struggling to keep the John intensity up the whole time. I really wanted to break character halfway through and just be like, wow, this protein math is actually really hard to hit on the road.
But yes, we did it. We made it through.
Okay, let's drop the act.
Let's drop it.
Listeners, if you are incredibly confused right now, check the calendar.
Happy April Fool's Day, everybody.
We are not John Niehaus and Gita Brown.
We are definitely not. We are your humble, normal hosts of The Deep Dive.
But we spent the last hour role-playing them because we are actually just huge fans of their show, The Calm Cockpit.
We really are. Everything we discussed today, the science, the fitness tips, the breathing protocols, the nutrition, that is all real fantastic content directly from their podcast.
We didn't make up any of the facts. We just borrowed their voices and their personas for a bit of fun today.
Yeah.
But seriously, if you found any of this interesting, if you are a pilot or aspiring to be one, or you're just interested in high-performance physiology in general, you really need to go listen to The Real Show.
Yes, absolutely. John Niehaus and Gita Brown are the real deal. They have guests like J.J. Madison and LaShaw Bacon on for actual interviews. They go so much deeper than we could in our little role-play experiment here.
So consider this our tribute Executive Deep Dive, an exploration into the world of aviation wellness, just delivered with a bit of a wink.
We hope you enjoyed the performance, and we hope you learned something useful about protein and breathing along the way.
Go find the Calm Cockpit on your favorite podcast platform or on social media. Tell them the Deep Dive sent you over.
And definitely tell them we are so sorry if we completely butchered their catchphrases.
The Real John and Gita will return for your next regular episode of their show.
Boston Tower 1 departure is Airbus 321. Traffic holding crossing runway 33 left, 3 lane.